What a wild one to finish here, folks. We have got another reaction live stream for you. Auburn versus Georgia in that 200th meeting in men's basketball. We're going to break it down here, the score, the stats, and of course, the storylines. Let's get into it right now. War Eagle, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live, where we discuss the Auburn experience. That Auburn experience to us is all about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, and Auburn family stuff. An easier way to say it, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. So thank you so much, and join us in what we're going to do in this particular live stream. What do we have on tap for you? It is a post-game reaction stream, and boy, what a post-game reaction stream it's going to be. We're all holding our breath at the end of that, if you were paying attention to college basketball and SEC basketball this year, you should have expected, especially playing on the road in the SEC. So let's start right there. The big three things that you need to know from Auburn versus Georgia. The score: the Tigers are victorious on the road in a top 25 matchup, 70-68. The big stat that I have for you is by way of Tahad Pettiford with a career high game of 24 points, and some of those came at very crucial moments for the Tigers to keep Georgia from making this thing even more interesting earlier points of the game. It kind of still ended up that way. And your big storyline, we mentioned this is the 200th meeting for Auburn men's basketball and Georgia. And that is the first time that Auburn has played somebody 200 times, and your Tigers are victorious. So that is your score, your big stat, and your big storyline. Let's get into the discussion and talk about it and react. The reactions will abound here. As you're coming into the stream, what we would love for you to discuss with us is obviously how you're feeling, thoughts about the game, all those different things. Post those in here, but you can start by smashing that like button. It is a huge help to us. Lets people know we're live. Lets people know that they can come back and watch the replay, whether you're watching or listening. All that good stuff is a huge help for us. We appreciate you doing that. Let us know where you're watching from as well. Is always a good thing to do in the live chat. If you're watching and listening on the replay, certainly consider joining us for other post-game discussions throughout the season. 70-68, and it comes down with 0.3 seconds. Auburn versus Georgia. Georgia has an opportunity for a tip up in there with, I believe, Asa Newell, the NBA prospect, had an opportunity and a pretty decent look to tie it up. And in a dangerous situation, had he been fouled and made it, give them the opportunity to get the win. But they don't. The Tigers are victorious over the Georgia Bulldogs, and we take down the rival in the 200th meeting. And I'm still trying to come down from the exciting nature of this game. I don't think I need to say this anymore, but I'm going to do it again because some of you still aren't listening. You should not ever take any SEC game for granted in this season. You shouldn't do it any year, really. It's the SEC where it just means more, by the way. I'm going to do the company line. But this season, SEC basketball is just dang good. That is a good Georgia Bulldog team. I'm going to give them the credit with a ton of talent. And the Auburn Tigers, still without their star player, with one of the best in college basketball still being out, they get the win, only by 2 points, but they get the win and are able to continue forward, maintaining that number one title, the best team in college basketball. And it's another quad one win, by the way, if you didn't know about that. Some of you have already bringing that up in the chat. So we got a really lively chat. Going to do my best to keep up with some of your commentary and bring some of your points up throughout the stream. So bear with us on that. How we do this is we normally go through the individual stats. Then we'll go through team stats throughout that. We'll talk about some of the storylines and then route out our time, but looking ahead. So we'll save kind of the future thinking up there at the later part of the show. So many of you guys are popping in. I'm not going to be able to say hello to all of you, but we will give a few of you there. Played so sloppy. Devin says still got the win. You got to take it. Several of you have posted a win is a win is a win is a win. This one, if I can find it on the chat, there's so much going on right now. Good Lord, that was stressful. And that's from Lucas. I agree. Absolutely agree. Devin says 5-0 start in SEC for consecutive seasons. First time in history. She's just going to be dropping the stats for all of us. 10-1 in quad one games. That means we obviously have 10 quad one wins, according to Unbeaten Lake. For those of you that are stats junkies in the Auburn basketball and college basketball realm. What else here do we want to talk to you guys about at the very start? I see there's going to be a lot of commentary about referees, Pat Adams, all that kind of stuff. So let me acknowledge for all of you, and I don't want us to become one of those fan bases or bring up those tendencies where that's all we focus on, especially in a win, but even in losses too. The officiating was not great today. Look, we're not going to, ignore that. It was not horrendous, but as I always try to remind you, you should never be in a position for horrendous officiating to affect the outcome of the game. They shouldn't be affecting the outcome of the game regardless, but certainly we're not going to, at least here, we're not going to focus on that so much. But certainly it left something to be desired today throughout the game. What I'd love for you guys to do, some of you are already doing that as you're starting to check in here, is give us your player of the game. I think there's probably a very likely candidate for that. A few others probably deserve some recognition as well. But in the chat, we would love to know from you, who is your player of the game? Even if it seems obvious, just post it in there because we just want to take a quick poll of the room. And I think I kind of set it up for you with the big stat, that being 24. That's 24 points from Tahad Pettiford today, the freshman phenom, showing why he is getting a lot of attention from the college basketball world. 7 for 13 on the day, 5 for 7 from the three-point arc. That's pretty dang good. Where he was a little bit underwhelming at times was his free throw shooting. He is 5 for 8, but for him, that's probably a little less than he would want. 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 personal fouls, and only he had 2 turnovers in 22 minutes of play. The fact that he only had 22 minutes and he accomplished this is saying something. So he definitely has the stat line that sticks out to you the most when you first look at it. A lot of you are giving some credit to some others as well, and certainly you need to do that. CBM is somebody who comes to mind because of how clutch he was at the beginning and at the end of the game for us. And certainly he's been one of those guys we need to make sure that we never forget how big their contributions are, because while he doesn't tend to be your leading scorer, he's always right there as one of the top 3 scorers or close to it. So he is tied for second in scoring today. But Chad's stat line is 13, 5 for 16 from the field, 3 for 6 from the three-point arc. No free throw shot by Chad today. 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 personal fouls, and 31 minutes of play. He was tied with Miles Kelly, who continues to be so versatile and so good. 13 points for him, 4 for 8 from the field, 1 for 4 from the three-point arc, 100%, 4 for 4 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds. So another game where he is very active, not just in scoring, but also in rebounding, where he had a double-double last game. So those are your top 3 scores for the Tigers. Everybody scores except for Chris Moore in this game. 24, 13, and 13. That's Tahad, Baker Mazzara, and Miles Kelly, who are your top scorers for the Tigers today. Certainly some other shout outs probably are on hand and warranted. One of those being Jacob wants to give a little bit of love while giving Tahad the player of the game to Turtle. Yaheem Hudson certainly got to play a lot more in this game. And I got to think that had something to do with the size and talented size of Georgia. Now, that's not saying that, Jakai wouldn't have also been able to do some special things there. He only plays 10 minutes tonight, but he gets 3 points. Yaheem Hudson tonight gets to play a lot more, 18 points, 5 points for him, and 3 rebounds. So he doesn't light up the stat sheet, but certainly we all noticed that we saw Turtle, as he's known, out there a little bit more today, which is, great to see, especially where you're still dealing with a time with Janai Broom being out for however long it may or may not be. Certainly, we are going to talk about team stats. Somebody's already wanting to bring up what they know I will be harping on a little bit. We'll get to that. That is free throws. I would say, I think across the board, when we're keeping our focus at this moment on individuals, it was not the most outstanding day free throw shooting wise, even from some of the guys that you thought would be pretty solid. Now, again, we brought up Miles Kelly today on his free throws, was 100%, 4 for 4. So that's pretty dang good. You can't get really mad at him. Again, I think the big thing for Miles that I continue to notice is just how solid across the board he usually is. He'll never, or I shouldn't say never. He's typically not going to be your leading scorer. He's typically not going to be that guy that you're just talking the most about, but he just puts together solid stuff every single game. So shout out for him today. So a little bit of a quiet day here. Let me do the rest of the scoring first. So the rest of your scores in the day: Denver Jones with 8, Chaney Johnson with 2, Dylan Cardwell with 2, Ja'Kai Howard with 3, and I think we already talked about Yaheem Hudson. So that's everybody who scored today for Auburn. So everybody except Chris Moore gets on the board. Now, Dylan and Chaney with only 2 points apiece. That is a little bit interesting, and I want to say worrisome. Obviously, the context is that Dylan, while he had some great moments in this game, was dealing with some cramping up the entire game. Really started worrying me there down the stretch when he hardly could hobble off the floor that last time that the cramps started coming on him, because I was like, that looks like a little bit more than cramping up. He only gets 2 points today in 22 minutes of play. Now, Chaney certainly didn't have the most outstanding statistical game, 2 points and 6 rebounds. So he ties for actually second in rebounds tied. Cardwell gets the most with 7. But so the 2 big men that you expect to make the most impact with Janai Broome out in this game didn't make that much of an impact on the points in the stat sheet type of thing. So maybe we'll see some of that reflected in team stats, and I think we will. But there you go. That's kind of your look at individuals, things like that. Who else? Anything else that we need to bring up in terms of shout outs, thoughts, questions about individual play in this game? I really think we need to continue to give a lot of praise to Tahad for the way he stepped up in this game in a big, big way. Jacob says the ball bounced really odd today, probably because we were on the road, but we missed a ton of shots that are usually a given for those guys. It certainly felt like at times there was a cap on top of the basket on both sides. But that's just kind of the way it is. And it's not so much that there is a quote unquote or imaginary cap on the basket. It's just you're off. You're at a different place. You're in a difficult environment. The Auburn family once again showed out at Stegman Coliseum, but they still had a lot of their fans there, the majority of them being there. And certainly that will throw you off. It'll make your shot less smooth, less confident, and thus maybe not as correctly hitting off the backboard, make it hit the rim a little bit awkward, more opportunity to spin out. So yes, I would agree with you that the ball just wasn't really cooperating with us at times today, or it might have been a little bit more of a secure win. But certainly that's because of the intense environment that has been created by Georgia. And this is their first home loss of the season, I believe, and it comes down to the absolute wire. I don't want that to be lost. Big Georgia hater here, big rival, but they are an excellent basketball team, and it showed today. This is a good question here, Jason. I had almost forgotten about this. Why did Cardwell change jerseys at half? Why is Pegues not playing? Well, there's 2 questions there. So Cardwell, I believe I saw something that there may have been some blood or something on his jersey. I can't confirm that. Typically, when a jersey is changed, it is something to that effect. Somebody had a cut, got blood on it. They don't want to, cross-contaminate as best as possible. / like in football, could have been a tear. And with the way that this game was physical at times, you would not be shocked. That would be my assumption, Jason. Now, you're asking a much bigger question with your question about Pegues. Pegues has struggled to start off the season, and thus he has not played as much as time has gone on. So it's really just as simple as that. And, you've got to earn your time back, and certainly that is what we hope that happens with Pegues. It's a much bigger conversation maybe for another day while we want to focus solely on this game, but hopefully we will see JP out there a little bit more when the season gets along, because certainly still plenty more games and times left to play. Okay. We have walked through individual stats. Last thing here as we kind of work our way across the stat sheet. This is kind of how I talk through it with you guys. They just looking at their guys. 3 of them in double digits. Newell is the leading scorer with 16 for them, the likely NBA prospect for this year. Auburn score at halftime was 33-27. Georgia outscores Auburn 37-41 in the second half, but it still results in the Tigers winning 70-68 in a very scary fashion at the end. Thankfully, we are talking today about a Tigers win on the road. And isn't it great? So not only is this the case here, I don't want this to be lost on you as fans. Your Tigers just got named number 1. anytime, this is not just an Auburn thing. Whenever someone gets up to number one, there's always going to be the question, well, did they deserve to be there? All that kind of stuff. There's going to be people that are unreasonable who always say that. But the best way that you can give people shut up juice or just make them look stupid for continuing that narrative is by just going out there and winning. The Tigers are going out there and doing that, but they're doing it without, at the time when he went out, the leading candidate for player of the year in college basketball, that being Janai Broome. So for the last two games, both of which are the first two they play without Janai Broome after his injury, the Tigers dominate a top 15 game on the road, at home versus Mississippi State. And now they have put together a road victory against a ranked opponent in Georgia in a very tough environment against a very talented basketball game. You're putting together a body of work that shows this isn't just about one player. This team is pretty dang good across the board. So don't forget that. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Now, it doesn't mean we won't lose some games. Doesn't mean we won't have struggles. Who knows how long Janai is going to be out? Certainly, I did make a commitment to a lot of you about where I would raise or lower my expectations based on how the SEC season went. And I kind of looked at this Georgia game as a good benchmark to kind of readjust my thinking. Certainly, Janai being out should affect that too. But anyway, we'll get into that some more as time goes on. Let's look at team stats. Certainly, there's a lot to look at here and maybe be frustrated about, but also be proud of too, in some sense. So as we look at team stats, field goal percentage for, let me back up. I always do my big three, and y'all know it. Some of y'all are reciting it right now by heart. Free throws, turnovers, and rebounds. That's what I stress every single week on this show, twice a week at this point. So, not good. Not good for both teams. I am vomiting theoretically or figuratively all over the place right now just looking at this. Auburn is 60% from the free throw line, 12 of 20. Absolutely awful for them, especially. Now, it's much worse for Georgia. 9 of 20, 45%. All I heard all week was how they were going to be able to get to the free throw line way more than Auburn. It's exactly the same tonight in terms of free throws. Some will argue about fouls and the way they were called and stuff, but the results are the same. And yet, all I was warned about is they're going to get to the free throw line and beat Auburn that way. Terrible performance from them. And it's just absolutely is awful. 45% for that talented of a team is not good. And so we caught a little bit of an anomaly today. So that just really sticks out to me and might even be my big stat of the game because it pretty much is what kept our bad free throw shooting is what kept them in the game, but they weren't able to compensate with it with their own. If they had, we'd probably be sitting here in a little bit more somber of a tone. So the turnovers, 11 for 12 or 11 and 12. That's in Auburn's favor. Auburn's 11, Georgia's 12. So Auburn wins that category. So they've won 2 of the 3 that I always stress. And then in rebounds, once again, 39 to 38, Auburn wins by 1. Wow. Not only was the score close, the stats, the most important stats to me are exactly close. And I think that this is why I stress these things a lot of times because they tell the picture of the game. They tell you what was really going on, how this thing wound down at the end. Let's wind down or round out the picture though. Not a great day shooting overall for Auburn. 39% is okay, but it's not to their level. They do shoot well from the three-point arc, 43%, and it's probably the reason that they won this game today. So 43% on the road is pretty dang good. We already talked about free throws and turnovers. Looking at how they broke down in the rebounds, Auburn out-rebounded them on offensive boards, but lost a little bit in the defensive boards, so kind of changed over there a little bit. Second chance points is basically the same. Bench points, here's a big one, 32 for Auburn, 15 for Georgia. Now, that's pretty interesting, and a lot of those are because of Todd Pettiford tonight, the fact that he doesn't start, and I think that stat's always going to be up there while he's not starting the way he's playing right now. But the fact that Georgia wasn't able to get as much production out of their bench is probably a big thing for them tonight. They do win points in the paint 24 to 34. So there's an area where Georgia certainly made up for some of their deficiencies in other areas. Fast break points, Auburn wins by 2. Blocks are exactly the same. Steals, Auburn wins 9-4. And the assists continue to be pretty low for Auburn over the last couple of games compared to where they were. 7-8, Georgia wins that one. So whether we're talking about those big important ones that I always discuss here, or any of these other individual or small single team stats, you're seeing a lot of change over the Auburn wins one, Georgia wins one, but a lot of them are close. There are very few where there's a big differential. Thus, the very, very close and scary ending for Auburn. Unbeaten Lake says, got to blame the shooting on the court. The great court was not pleasant to look at. I have heard so many people just going off about Georgia's court. I've got to think part of it is fueled by our hatred of Georgia. However, I will tell you, if you think this is awful, there will be nothing that ever looks worse. I don't care what the color of court is than what Vanderbilt has. It makes me angry, and we got to go see that this year. So I hear y'all not liking the way it looks and all, but functionality and just pure stupidity, that is always going to be won by Vanderbilt's court. But that's a discussion point for another day. I've just laughed at a big talking point that's been out there about that. TD wants to give, this is from TD on Facebook. He said, he said horrible shooting today. It was certainly that. This was from Tommy. He skipped ahead as I tried to click on his comment there. Pettiford, best freshman in college basketball. I haven't looked out there enough. I think Cooper Flagg is a freshman, so I think, unfortunately, you're probably not going to win that argument. But Tahad is one of the best, and that's why he's getting a lot of the attention. It's why there's a lot of discussions lately amongst Auburn fans, and I would continue to caution people to not get so focused on that about why isn't he starting. Well, why would you want to mess up a good system the way things are working right now? People who start are there for a reason because they get you off to the best start. And when Tahad comes in, he gives you a nice punch in the mouth with his ability to create opportunities for himself and for others. So, and he's playing, as long as you are winning, as long as they are producing, and as long as the team is ultimately productive, I don't see a reason to change anything going forward. Okay, so individual stats, team stats. We talked about the scoring breakdown per half. Some of the storylines, the big one is that 200th matchup with Georgia in the first time Auburn has played somebody 200 times. I found that out right before the game started from the SID department. Credit to them for putting that out. And that was a pretty cool little fact I didn't realize. So the Deep South oldest rivalry goes very deep, even beyond football right there. Have we all just collectively caught a breath? I think we got, when the chat started, it was on fire, but I think everybody's adrenaline is no longer pumping now. Anything else that we haven't talked about this particular game, individually wise, team wise, that you all would like to talk about? Put that in the chat now, and we'll kind of cover that to round out the show. What we want to normally end our time with is looking a little bit ahead and talking about what's coming up for the Tigers and what's the future going to look like. Before we do that, though, let me always give you some reminders. And I'm about to give you some reminders about what's coming up here at E2C Network. But keep in mind, this week is going to be a little different. We're going to have E2C Network on site, hopefully in Auburn this weekend. So things could rapidly change. But what won't change is this. Tomorrow night, the Auburn Experience, live podcast recording at 9 Eastern time. Sports, culture, and family. It's the flagship show of everything we do here. Austin, who was surprised us all, and that's my co-host, was at the game. We'll talk to him and give him crap about being a little bit of a bad luck charm, but this time it works out in his favor. We're going to talk about that and much, much more tomorrow night. So join us live for that. You can also listen to the podcast recording later on, but we'd love to see you there for the live portion of the show. The next scheduled content that we have at this moment for you is Wednesday night live streams, which are called Auburn Family Night. We take calls, all that stuff. This is a bit tentative right now because of some stuff that I'm going to address with you here just in a second. I know for those of you that are listening on the replay of this or the audio portion of this, this might be a little bit boring, but just this is important information for people living in the moment currently and wondering about all this stuff. So keep in mind, that one is normally scheduled at 8. It may still go at 8. It may go at 9. It's going to depend on a lot of things this week. And I'm going to forego my normal, check out our links in the description thing. Just remind you to do that here on YouTube. Last thing I'll say before we kind of round out our show with more basketball talk. We all know that this week is a big one for Auburn sports. We have got the big matchup with Tennessee coming up. Auburn doesn't have a midweek game. There's a lot going on. There's a gymnastics meet. Swimming and diving is on campus. Women's basketball will be there Sunday. There's the memorial service for Chet Williams. And then, of course, to throw that all in there, the camp out and snow coming in earlier in the week. We plan to be on campus, that meaning me mainly, but we'll see whoever else wants to join me over there. Live a lot from campus this week. There could be a ton of stuff that we don't even get a chance to plan or announce. We may just do it off the cuff, especially around that camp out. So join us live all week. Follow all the stuff that you can out there on social media. Okay. Let's talk about let's round out the show here. I know I spent a little bit of extra time on that. Tommy says SEC basketball is always tough. Certainly it is, and it's not going to get any easier. Everybody's going to continue to, in theory, get better and better. So stick around for that. WT says, I am still amazed at the quality of Coach Burrell's in-game coaching. He certainly is one of the best to do it out there in all aspects, and that's one of the things that he does well. For most people, I think some people are probably going to find areas to critique. There's always going to be areas to critique, but most certainly he is good at a lot of things, and that is one of them. Austin was at the game, and it would explain a few of our struggles, WT. Nothing slips past you. Of course, we were talking about it in the Concord Club on our Discord. So looking forward, I already mentioned it. The schedule is as such. There is no midweek game. This is one of those few times that you get a bye week. There's usually 2 games a week for Auburn basketball. So you get a little bit of time off, which is kind of really timely with this snowstorm coming through. So take a breather on that. We'll be back to it. Stay tuned with us because you never know what else we might be talking about. But this big one Saturday, I will be in Auburn. I do not have a ticket to the game. I do not have media access or anything to the game, but I will be there on campus to go to College Game Day when they come to town, be able to go into that and do a lot of stuff with the camp out and stuff like that. So make sure you guys are staying tuned. Anything else that you guys want to discuss about the future, things like that, I should have saved some of these things that you guys were saying about the future earlier in the show, but I didn't do a good job of that. This is from Unbeaten Lake. I'm extremely thankful Tennessee's a home game and we get a week off. Could not come at a better time. This is from Andy checking in with us. Knew this game was going to be a struggle. I didn't realize it was going to be that kind of a struggle. Well, welcome to the Auburn experience. That's what it is. It's a roller coaster ride. Week off can be scary, WT says. We have to keep up the intensity going into Tennessee. I did discuss this with someone yesterday. I think it was on TikTok while it still exists. And we were debating, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Certainly in terms of injuries, Dylan's got something going on with his leg that probably needs to be worked out, but it can get you out of the flow. The good thing is that if you're going to get out of the flow, at least you're going to be playing at home, even if it's against, arguably the other best team in SEC play right now. This matchup is going to be huge. My only regret for this is that Auburn still aren't 1 and 2 together. Who knows what the rankings will show this Monday, but it is going to be a matchup for the ages. The week off thing could be scary. It could be beneficial, or probably will be a mixture of both. But we'll wait and see what happens there. Listen, folks, I've been waiting for this weekend a long time, whether or not I was going to get to go to the game or not, because this is going to be one of those special weekends at Auburn that gets close to the excitement and fever pitch level of a football type of weekend. So here's my biggest encouragement to you. I know everybody be careful with the weather and stuff out there and traveling. Who knows how much snow the South and Auburn is going to get, but certainly be careful, but try to come to Auburn. And I know it'll be a little bit chilly, but just come check it out, experience, maybe set up your own tailgate out there in the parking lots and stuff like that. Let me know. I'll come join you, stuff like that. But there's going to be a lot of exciting things out there. Andy wants to know, are we concerned about Cardwell? Just a cramp, maybe? That's what it seemed like it was. I have no official report or anything from the athletic department, but at this current time, so I would not assume too much until we hear otherwise. Sam says, and this is about football, I think. So certainly we don't want to really focus on that here, but certainly anytime you have a high profile game like this for basketball, it does give great opportunities for the Auburn fan base to show out in all aspects and impress anybody that's going to be here. All right, folks, that is going to do it. 70-68, the Tigers win. Your big stat, 24 points, career game for Tahad Pettiford, the freshman phenom. And, of course, the big storyline, in 200 games, the first time Auburn has played somebody 200 times, the Tigers are victorious against their second biggest rival, the Georgia Bulldogs. What a game it was, and what a season it has been and is going to continue to be. And we appreciate you sticking with us, hanging out with us, and doing these post-game streams with us. Until we get the opportunity to talk to you again, War Eagle and stay safe out there.